I've cross-referenced gnome sightings with lunar phases, weather patterns and gnome-friendly snacks, and my dedication to gnomeology rivals that of any gnome enthusiast. I've interviewed gnome historians, visited gnome-infested gardens, and even deciphered gnome hieroglyphs. And I can confidently say that the silent guardians in this story have the richest backstory. In 1800s Victorian-era Europe, real-life humans served as ornamental garden hermits on the estates of wealthy landowners. This is their amazingly bizarre yet true story. Before garden gnomes came into fashion, people in the 19th century performed a unique job as garden hermits. These individuals were typically elderly men who were willing to live in isolation, wear worn-out robes, and neglect their personal cleanliness. Wealthy estate owners employed them to act as guardians of the gardens and wildlife. This practice was prevalent in 19th century Europe before the era of ceramic garden gnomes. In Georgian England, two main trends led to ornamental hermitage. Wealthy landowners wanted large, fancy gardens to show off their wealth and mirror society's feelings like sadness and loneliness. In elite circles, feeling deep sadness was seen as a sign of being smart. They liked to connect with this feeling and show it off. They used their belongings to express this kind of thoughtful sadness. Wealthy landowners started putting ads in newspapers to find men willing to live in their gardens for around 7 years. These ads looked for individuals who could commit to a quiet, sad and possibly enigmatic life as ornamental garden hermits. One such ad placed by Charles Hamilton outlined the expectations for a hermit in residence as follows. He shall be provided with a Bible, optical glasses, a mat for his feet, a hassock for his pillow, an hourglass for timepiece, water for his beverage, and food from the house. He must wear a camlet robe, and never under any circumstances must he cut his hair, beard or nails, stray beyond the limits of Mr. Hamilton's grounds, or exchange one word with the servant. In the 1800s, strange hermits were popular. The weirder they were, the more people liked them. Back then, being alone was cool, and people paid a lot of money to those who could stay dirty and without new clothes for almost 10 years. This was a tall order, and some men who took on the position couldn't stand the life for more than a few months or years. These men must have been rather miserable, as hermitage contracts often stated that if the hermit left before his tenure ended, he would also forego payment for his services. Now, let us delve into the daily existence of these solitary figures, hidden away in lavish garden estates. Imagine, if you will, a grand Victorian mansion surrounded by sprawling gardens, a picturesque scene of manicured lawns and exotic flora. In one secluded corner, a rustic hermitage barely more than a shack, made of rough-hewn logs and thatched with straw. This humble abode was home to a peculiar resident, a garden hermit. His name, long forgotten by the pages of history, lived on in the whispers of the wind through the leaves. His appearance was as wild as the woodland surrounding him, a long, unkempt beard and hair matted and tangled, clothes worn to threads. The rules he followed were stringent and bizarre. No grooming, no speaking, no contact with the outside world. When hermits stayed, their lives were simple. They lived in small shacks or caves on the property and acted as symbols of quiet and the closeness of death to visitors. Their main job was not to talk to guests, although sometimes hermits did light garden work or helped bartend at garden parties. The hermit's presence itself was enough to make wealthy landowners proud, similar to showing off prized possessions like horses or spouses. As the sun climbed higher, he might tend to a small garden of herbs, his only allowable hobby. The herbs were not just for his use, but also served as a subtle enhancement to the aesthetic of the estate. Occasionally visitors to the estate, intrigued by the novelty of a real-life hermit, would wander near his dwelling. He observed them silently from a distance, an enigmatic figure, stirring curiosity and sometimes unease. The day would fade into evening and he would retreat to his hermitage, his presence merely an echo in the lush twilight gardens. His life was a paradox, surrounded by beauty yet isolated from the world, observed by many but known by none. Isolated yet on display, the hermit led a life of silent observation, a living ornament in the midst of opulent surroundings. Beyond the silence and the beard, what might a hermit feel living such a constrained life? Imagine, if you will, an existence far removed from the bustling society of Victorian England, where an old man is both a sentinel and a spectacle in a grand garden. This is not just a tale of isolation, but a deep dive into the emotional and physical contours of a garden hermit's life. Nestled among lush greenery, the hermit's world was one of profound solitude. Forbidden from speaking, his days were spent in silence, a silence that could be as oppressive as it was meditative. The weight of loneliness must have pressed heavily upon him, each day stretching long and unbroken by conversation. Yet, in this silence, there might have been a peculiar kind of peace, a sanctuary from the relentless pace of the outside world. Physically, the elements were constant companions. Summer's heat would beat down upon his unwashed, unkempt figure, while winter's chill would creep into his bones, unmitigated by the warmth of human contact or adequate clothing. Rain would wash over him, unrelenting and cold, yet perhaps also refreshing to a man bound to the earth in such an elemental way. Despite these hardships, there could have been moments where the beauty of nature served as a balm to his confined spirit. The rustle of leaves, the chirping of birds, and the scent of blooming flowers might have offered fleeting pleasures and a sense of connection to a world beyond human follies. How did he maintain his sanity? Perhaps he constructed a rich inner life, his mind wandering far beyond the physical limits of his garden prison. Maybe he became a philosopher of sorts, pondering life's great mysteries, or maybe he simply found a way to accept his fate with a stoic resignation. In the quiet of the garden, the hermit's thoughts were his only true companions, his silent words echoing in the chambers of his secluded world. How profound the human spirit must be to find sustenance in such solitude. What echoes from the past do these curious traditions of the Victorian era send forth into our modern world? As we delve into these peculiar customs, it's essential to ponder the broader implications they hold for understanding our cultural fabric. The practice of keeping garden hermits, for example, was not merely a bizarre hobby, but a reflection of the social and power dynamics of the time. These eccentricities offer a lens through which we can examine the values, norms, and often the inequalities that were woven into the everyday lives of our forebears. By looking back at such odd traditions, we gain insight into the complexities of human behavior and societal structures. Reflecting on the past can sometimes feel like looking into a distorted mirror, yet it provides crucial context for the present. As we uncover these stories, we learn more about our ancestors and perhaps a bit more about ourselves. If you find delight in unraveling the threads of history's tapestry, consider subscribing for more tales from the annals of time. As society changed and moved away from being overly gloomy and excessive, no longer treating humans like decorations, the garden hermit changed too. It traded its serious looks and manner for a kitschy glass form, becoming the ceramic garden gnome we know today. Like with old, obscure practices from long ago, if you search online for a while, you can usually find someone who wants to bring it back. In the summer of 2014, an ad was posted on Craigslist. Gentle lady seeks ornamental hermit. While not bathing or speaking for years may seem unpleasant to many as far as job duties go, reminding everyone who walks by about death is certainly better than a lot of jobs. Reflecting on these stories, it's crucial to recognize the value in understanding such peculiar aspects of our history. They not only enrich our perspective on the human condition, but also remind us of the importance of dignity and personal freedom. Each chapter of history, no matter how bizarre or unsettling, contributes to the tapestry of human experience. Should curiosity ever beckon you towards the stranger side of history, please join us by subscribing. It would really mean a lot. Together, let's continue to explore the curious corners of our world. Thanks for watching, and I hope something good happens to you today. Peace!